So welcome to the Organic Garden Sessions, our third special guest to the garden today. We have Lee McDonald joining us. Woo. Come through please, Lee. A warm welcome. Woo! The crowd goes wild.
Oh wow. I think you already broke it, you and Lisa.
But it needs to go over there or something. I'll try it again, yeah?
Yeah. Wait. What about if I tip it a little bit? That's right.
Strange, right?
Yes, strange.
You see me down here? Hello.
Yeah.
Is your camera set? Okay.
Thank you, Lee.
Nice you came over today.
Got a lovely day.
And
Sun
it's
shines out. Have a
yeah.
look around the garden, didn't we?
And the first time, or no, for a long time that you haven't worked outside.
Yeah, I haven't worked. I didn't do very many tests outside, no.
So today's tests, as Lee calls them, how would you describe your tests? What is a test?
Why is it a test?
It's just like, yeah, just, it is what it is, what it says, like a test, it's like so it's like basically a motor system that I attach things to, and then activate them, and then see what happens. So I just test out different materials, objects, and different places, if you like.
Is there a certain goal? Because like to me, the word test kind of implies like that you're testing towards a result. But at the same time, when I see your work, I feel that it is what it is, you know?
Yeah. I'm not sure if there's like an end result. Yeah. I mean, today we were trying to post this out of the canal, so that was the goal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So then there's all these things, obstacles that you come across and ways. So you have to like figure out a system to try and make the thing come out of the canal.
But then at the same time, like we knew the problems, and we like persevered without taking those problems out of the way.
Yeah, to a certain, or maybe even adding problems.
Yeah.
Makes it interesting.
I mean, in the end of the day, there is no, like you could, if you want to pull it through, of course you could do it by hand or in a very simplistic approach. So I think, is there something more to it? Like, I mean, about your approach with this low-tech solutions to kind of self-created problems?
Yeah, it's quite a difficult thing to answer. It's like, maybe it's got something to do with the way I think generally. Like, I always seem to put problems in the way before I even start and things like that. I don't know. But yeah, it's not. but it's also trying to create something that's unexpected. So you trying to like make like this system, quite a basic system, and then adding stuff to it, and then once you start getting something moving, there's always like this interesting pattern or scenario that happens. So it's not really, like today we were trying to pull the thing out of the canal, but usually I don't have that go. That was Lisa's addition to the work. The same with the fabrics. So you like kind of use fabrics, you had it go, but usually I just like, yeah, well there's a fabric, put it on the thing and then just see what happens, change the angle. Like with the wheelbarrow, we were changing the angle of it to make it like kind of make different movement. But that's the main thing I'm interested in, is the movement of what's happening. To keep like this abstract movement going for as long as possible. So it's like kind of like a constant change. It's not like a rhythmic pattern. It has that, but then I'm trying to like avoid this thing. So the sculpture, if you like, it becomes a sculpture and then it starts to shift around different shapes as it's moving, but it's very temporary. It's got a very temporary state. And then when you video it, you can kind of screen capture or look at a frame at a time, and then each one is a completely different.
And still different from the reality angle, right? Like
from the real thing. From what? That's
each angle is totally different.
It is.
Like one camera shot is like Lou's camera and my camera in different places, and we've got different pieces of the work.
Like for example, about the work we were talking before, like the one that you were dancing with, like you said that like when you move around you experience the sound differently, for example.
Yeah.
Like when I saw this little film, of course I couldn't experience that because I was kind of selected to what you share with me.
You have to kind of see the work but the problem is, it's like, who's going to go to an exhibition where something may or may not work, something may or may not happen, and then it's like, everybody wants this like, kind of thing that operates and it does something that's recognisable.
Yeah.
They only like say, oh, okay, it's moving around, it's dancing, it's doing its thing, and that can go on forever. But with these things, they're kind of more, they're a little bit temperamental. There's both kind of human aspect to them, like the way that we operate as people. There's always mistakes that happen, or like things never go according to how you plan. You know, or hardly ever. If you plan something, there's always there's the possibility that something can get in the way of that plan through life. So there's things like that come into it. Depends how much you want to read into the work. Because it can be just a thing shifting around, but once you start thinking of talking about movement and how things move through like time and in a space, and then you've got the sound. The sound it makes may refer to something. The way it looks may refer to something else. So there's all of these things that you have to like kind of you can consider, or it can just be a thing. With this one, what was interesting, I think, was we were pulling the rope across the canal, but the grass was getting tangled, so the thing was changing, it was adding to itself. So things were adding to it, and then it was adding all these extra pieces to the sculpture.
It was unexpected.
Yeah, so we didn't expect that to happen, but it grew, but it also broke it. It stopped it from operating, things like that.
We didn't get it out of the water. We just collected a lot more weeds. But what I noticed, Lee, or what was nice, was like, because it was the first time that we tried to do something together, and I've often thought like your movements and the fabrics and stuff can be interesting. But then like I noticed, like I'm confronted my idea, I think, oh, I want this and this to happen.
Yeah. So
I'm like more trying to think what I want to make this machine let happen.
Hello. Boom boom.
Whereas you're like way more director, like, or it's not goal directed. It's like put things together and see what happens. Like
Yeah.
you're not trying to divert. You're not trying to control the process.
Not like
or lightly.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it as free as possible.
Yeah.
There's always like some sort of direction. When you make a choice of materials and then you put the motor there to do that, there's certain things that you have to make decisions on,
Yeah.
but you try and keep that as loose as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. But for example, like when we tied fabrics to this and then the wheelbarrow starts moving, like that I would never have expected. You know, things like that. Or for example, when we were tying on the thing and you had it in your mind, like that if the motor is not attached fast and is moving as well, that can be an added value, you know, so that there's very little that is static or there's very few givens in the work. You know, it can always, it can move on, or it can go more ways than what you're really, and that's what's happening. Yeah.
So there's always these like kind of like surprises that happen. So I mean, sometimes they're quite disappointing. Sometimes it's just a switch, or you switch it on and you're like, oh. And then a couple of times you thought the motor had broken, didn't you? And you're like, oh, okay, how are we going to do stuff now?
Yeah. We had some backup plans for without a motor.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, I don't know why I'm so attached to the motors, because there are other interesting ways to provoke movement in materials. And like you were saying, we're going to hammer stuff into the ground and then crank handles, things like that. But with these, you don't have to do anything. You plug it in and then you just leave it, and it's its own thing. That's what I find interesting about working with this motor system. You don't you don't have any control. Once you've set up the situation, you have to just let it do its thing.
And what would be like the ultimate goal or the ultimate test with this? Like, is there something you would like it to do?
If I could get a motor and spin an aeroplane around on its nose or something, it would be quite interesting. Yeah, like maybe like scale. I'm quite interested in scale as well. I mean, when you get like bigger machinery and stuff, then it just becomes more interesting. I think, maybe, or it doesn't. Technically, it does, because then you have to build a machine that would have to attach to a certain part, and then you have to support things. I don't know. Yeah, ultimate. I mean, it's just. Yeah, it's a good one.
And you don't like. It's not. You won't get tired of this.
I don't know. Like, as you do, I mean, you find like a kind of series or a pattern emerging. So you get the ones that just twitch, the other ones that do stuff and then the end falls off, other ones that just go on and on and on and on. Yeah, and then some that like start, stop, start. So you kind of get a pattern. So then I've started to use like add extra motors onto them and then do multi-directional stuff. So you have one motor turning one way and then another way. The other ones are constant, and then you have like two different arms that work more like an arm. So you can kind of keep it. I'd like to keep extending the amount of motor systems to try and make the movement as complex as possible for as long as possible.
I have a question. Since I see my daughter right now, but it kind of like, maybe it's a far-fetched, but you know, seeing what he do, it reminds me a lot of times the way kids try to explore the world around them.
Yeah.
Like, for example, she does a lot of times what you call tests or experiments, and she just tries things out like in a kind of similar way, like, okay, what's gonna happen if I connect this to that? So to me, like, your work has this kind of, in a good way, childish approach of like,
Yeah, it's a very simple way of thinking.
Yes,
It's,
yes.
but it becomes quite complicated very quickly. Because being an adult, you bring all of this other stuff to it.
Yes.
So when you're a child, you're like, oh, okay, what happens if I do this? But then an adult doing a similar like kind of thing becomes, I don't know what it
More
means.
intentional, right?
It's more intentional, and it's not a learning process as such. It is, and I don't know. It is a learning process in a way.
It's maybe hard to keep it as simple as how a child would do it. Like we automatically bring in associations
Yeah.
and thoughts.
Yeah, I
and
think like with children, the urge to learn comes first, and then they try all these things out. And I think here maybe you have a kind of reversed approach that you intentionally do these things, and sometimes you do have an idea of what the result is, but
Yeah.
then the surprise comes, which is maybe this.
Because there are other ones like where I've taken the approach. So I had like I was saying before, I was interested on how to extend the abstract movement, because that's kind of the basis where it comes from. It's like how things move around in a space, or what it's surrounded by. So I tried to do a thing where I had like an arm with a silly string, can of silly string, and then the two-way, the arm that was going one way and then going the other way, and then a constant, and then the silly string would like press and then release, and then you would have this like kind of stream of material that would come out, and then it would spiral around. So it was an extension again onto this abstract movement. So you're kind of trying to, like draw it into space, if you like. But again, it's very temporary, and I think that's what's interesting about it, is that it doesn't last for very long. It's like, that's the only time you'll see it, and then the only other time it's like a representation through a video. So you really get to see this thing like, in that, and I think that's part of life. Like we're living in like this environment where things only happen once. Like even though there's like things fluttering around in the trees, but the movement's never really the same. So maybe it's trying to copy like this natural movement, but with a machine, which is quite frightening, I suppose. Maybe. I don't
And
know.
then there's the documentation as well, though, like that your work doesn't exist without, does not exist, I guess, for all of us without documentation. And that also, like when you're doing this, you're sort of involved in this, and to get the camera going is sometimes a bit much. Like I missed one really good one we did today. But yeah, that's also part of it, that the camera may or may not work, or have the right view.
Because I remember there was a point where I lost some videos and I was devastated. It was really weird. I felt really like quite sad about it, and I never really thought I was that attached to the work. I thought they're not that valuable. It doesn't matter. I mean, I don't really care. And then when I was trying, because I was trying to do, it was a silly string one. I was trying for like days to get it right and get the system working, and then it finally worked, and then I ended up losing the first one that I did. I ended up doing a screen capture that I sent to someone, so I had a little clip of it, but not the whole thing. But then I had to redo the whole thing, but the amount of work that it took to make was ridiculous, because I was trying to capture it with like 3 or 4 different cameras, and then I was trying to activate two motor systems and another servo to press the thing, but also keep this like kind of organic movement. And it's like quite a hard thing to balance. So it's really strange. I don't know.
Yeah, making organic movement with a machine.
Yeah. But a very basic machine as well. I mean, it's only it's like a motor, but it's, I don't know.
And where does did you have some background interest in this kind of technology, or like, how did you start doing that? Where it all began, let's say like that? It was something very natural to you, or? developed when we were later in the academy, like this interest, or it was like kind of always your?
It's elevated more since I've been in the Netherlands because I did my masters here, and then we had to focus on something. So I worked like quite intensively on them then. But before that, it was during when I was at college. I did a test. Like took apart an old toy with my brothers. It's like a dinosaur, and then you push it and it would make a roaring sound, and then it would like move across the thing. But I dismantled it and I made another sculpture of it, and then somebody came over and said, "What are you doing?" And then I pushed the button, and then she was like went to touch it, and it just went. And then this thing just lifted up with twitched, and she like it freaked her out. So then I like realised that there's like this reaction that you get just from something moving.
Yeah.
And then I was like working with these sorts of things, and then I ended up going to university and then making similar stuff, like attaching strange materials together, but in a very different way. It was more like it wasn't as like the recording process here is quite an important part of the work, whereas then I didn't see it. The work I was trying to make something that would last, but not last, because there was these tubes, they would all tangle up, and then it would like make obscure movement. But I could untangle them and then reset them, but I didn't video the things as intensively as I do now. So I started to kind of, just collect an archive of all of the stuff that happened.
Yeah, because it feels like a lot of like you're playing with expectations. Like every time you set it up, you sort of think you know what will happen.
Yes.
And sometimes that does happen, or doesn't happen, or the motor falls off, and like. Or some we had one that nothing happened, or nearly nothing happened, and then it's a bit of a anticlimax, boring. But so I have a feeling like it's really.
But that's the thing. What you end up doing is you trigger, because everybody's got different types of humour or things that they like to happen. Some people like to see things fail.
Yeah.
So if you're like building up this expectation and you've got loads of people around and they're like all waiting for this thing to happen, you'll always get one person that'll they'll be like, haha, it didn't work. It makes you feel a bit silly, and they like the fact that it makes you feel silly or something, you know?
Kind of power games.
Yeah, like a weird power game maybe, or just something to do with how they operate as a person.
Yes, maybe this perception of what works and what not.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, if they don't know what's your intention behind it, it's kind of hard to tell, you know?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I remember a couple of the things, I've set them off, and people have laughed because they look quite comical, and then somebody came up and was like, I don't find them funny, and then just but because the thing was quite an emotional thing that was happening or something. Like there's this struggling thing, and it's making a noise, and then it broke itself. And I think that's the thing. It's sounds funny, but it can trigger different things in different people. That's what I'm saying.
So they do. I feel they also saw it. Maybe even more about the viewer than you, in that sense of I expect this to happen, or I associate with it. Because I wasn't here when you were doing the thing, so I was following on Instagram to see what you were doing, and a lot of times I felt in this so now this is going to happen, and I really, really expect it, and then when it doesn't happen, of course I get this feeling maybe, it didn't work out, but then I bring also myself a bit back, and I think
something else worked out.
Yeah, but I don't even know if that was your plan. I just projected my own idea of what might happen, and then I made it it was what was supposed to happen, which is I think two different things. And it's quite funny to play with that.
Yeah, that you are
Because
confronted with your expectations of
yes,
it.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. Because I never knew like there is no clear plan when you see the setup also like there's all these random elements that you can play, but we tend to like rationalize and be like, oh, that's what's going to happen, or what is the goal, like
Yeah.
the end result. So, and when it doesn't happen, you feel either disappointed, or if it does work out as you imagine it, happy. But I think like that's both ways is interesting for me as a viewer at least. Is like my own brain having all these expectations out of nothing actually.
Yeah, because it is just like, it doesn't affect anything. Really, it doesn't like affect the day, or it's just like. But it's a strange thing about art. You
Yeah,
read
that
into.
it's such an emotional connection to this thing that
Yeah, because you're trying to get it's something to do with movement. When things move, you like kind of associate it with like a living thing
Yeah.
in a weird way.
yeah.
And then when it's got like these kind of obscure movements, and then you start to see other shapes in it. I mean, you can see that in abstract painting. You start to look at something, you can see all of these like kind of things that are in the work, and then when it's moving, it becomes alive, and then you can see something like dancing around, or a dog like scratching on the ground, or just something. Maybe it could be something even like dying or fighting, or trying to get out of a trap. Usually, when things are struggling, it's for not for a very good reason. So you kind of associate to that. Maybe I don't know. It's a weird thing, but it's interesting. Like you say, it is a very childish way of producing work, but
in a good way, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely meant it in a good way of, like, I think we as adults are very result orientated. Like,
Yeah.
feeling like, okay, you need to do this and get this.
yeah,
And like children, I think they don't know what
They
they
don't
want
know what's
to get.
gonna happen,
So they
yeah.
just test, learn. Like, okay, I'm gonna try this to see what happens. And I get kind of similar feeling to you. And I think that's the trick also with a viewer. That a lot of times, like as a viewer, you're very result orientated, especially with arts. Like, okay, what's gonna be?
Yeah.
but it's interesting with a viewer. Everybody's got their own kind of knowledge, their own life, and then if somebody looks at it, if a scientist looks at it, they're going to see completely different things.
Yeah.
If a psychiatrist looks at it, they're going to see something else.
And you're okay with that, right? I mean,
I think so. Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of. That's what you have to do. I think you just have to open it up. I mean, I can explain things from my perspective, how I started and what I'm trying to do, and the conversations I've had with different people, and maybe some of the research that I've done. But yeah, it's fine. I think it's okay to let people think. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's weird.
I really liked when we were, so we were closing out the wheelbarrow and we were stripping on the motor, and then when you thought like, hey, we don't need to make it static, like that even the motor can be like not secured
yeah.
to the wheelbarrow, like everything can move.
Yeah.
And like when you said that, I had to think of the situation we're in now with a pandemic, and like all of these givens, all of these things we take to be certain are no longer certain. So more
All
things
parts
are
moving,
all parts are
yeah.
moving. And I think that's
how is it for you, like, these times? Is it
I mean, apart from worrying about my family back home, but I've been in more contact with them. So I've probably become a bit closer from a distance, to some extent. But but apart from that, my life hasn't changed because I don't travel much. I like to be in one place. And then, I mean, it would be nice to have things back to still kind of socialise, because the pub and things like that. I mean, I kind of miss these social things, going to the park. But as far as like travelling around, and I mean, we've still got food, we've still got water, we've got somewhere to sleep. I do feel for people that are like struggling where they're in a small area. I'm quite lucky that I've got like I'm with one other person, then we can both look, can kind of look after. But if you've got a big family and you're stuck inside with them, I mean, it would be.
Or if you don't have a house, like even more extreme situation.
Yeah, very. So it's. I mean, but yeah, it hasn't affected my daily life that much, apart from a bit more worry, if you like, about like family.
And artistically, like, I mean, do you now? I guess I don't know how was your life, but do you get more time or more like?
The thing is, it's difficult, more difficult to, because I still have to work, but work's like kind of limited. So usually what I do is I go to work and then I'll go have some like breakfast and then go to work in the studio. So the motivation when I'm working is like better. Whereas now it's like we don't have to do anything. It's like literally I just go to work on the day I have to, and then I don't have to do anything other than that. So it's hard to get motivated to make anything else. But I did a residency with Het Resort, and that was nice to get back in the rhythm of making work and then coming here. So we're quite lucky in that respect, yeah, I think.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you also have some stuff coming up?
Yeah, but I'm not coming to talk about it.
Oh, wow! No, that's nice, that's nice. No, I like some mystery.
That may happen.
I mean, also with Lisa, some stuff?
Yeah, so we're trying to, we have to wait and see how it works. But that relies on a more social, that people need to be there, don't they?
Yeah,
That'll get accepted.
But for us it was quite, for me it was nice to finally put, yeah, no really, because I've been thinking of this a long time, how do the fabrics operate with your motors?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there's no possibilities. Like we just
Yeah,
scratched the surface today. Yeah.
The amount, like the thing is, what you have to do is you have to restrict the space,
Yeah.
restrict the material, and then you can kind of you can get more grip on what we can do.
Yeah.
But when you're like, because it came here, you got a shed full of stuff, and you got like wheelbarrows, you got like.
I think it's kind of like
I mean, if you come here and
paradise for this stuff, right?
But if you come here and spend like a couple of weeks here, you could make so much.
Wow. Well.
Now that you mention it,
there are some plans in the pipelines for short residencies.
So we can keep you a spot.
Yeah, but I mean for others as well. You can like, there's a lot of things here.
Yeah, space, tools. Yeah, mud. But Lee, maybe we can open up the fabric piece.
Oh yeah.
To see, I don't know how we tie that on. But this fabric piece got started here with a pair of child's jeans and some embroidery that someone left in the weggeefkas, so the giveaway cupboard. And I sewed them together quickly in the garden a couple of weeks ago, and it didn't feel finished, and I felt like it had to be finished in the garden. So
you really like wanted to let it be part of the garden kind of time.
Yeah, and it felt like it had to be finished here, so together created. That's the top. This is the top.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Oh, something is happening here.
So, yeah, I think we can just hang that up and let it dry. And I like it a lot more now.
This is quite interesting.
Yeah,
it is.
Yes, that's what I'm looking at too.
The kind of
nipple
but the pattern.
detail.
So it's like stretched the material a bit.
Yeah,
right?
it has.
It's quite interesting because you can use a stretching technique to change
deform
the
the shape of fabrics.
shape.
Okay. Cool. Thank you, Lee. We'll hang that up and let it dry. Anything else you would like to mention? Or do we have any questions from our viewers?
How many viewers are there? 2?
We've got Flora, Dennis,
Oh, 2, yeah.
Rihanna. Are there any questions for Lee?
No,
It's a
don't
bit
think so.
awkward. Okay, well, thank you for joining us. For those of you who joined us.
We'll give them a bit of time, they might type
Yeah,
something.
sometimes
Okay.
it takes some
Ah,
time.
yeah, because in the
Like my
the
wrist, I have a
delay.
question.
Live. No, I don't think anybody's going to ask anything.
Predictable. You're all predictable.
It's too predictable,
I
yeah.
knew exactly what was going to happen.
Yeah, Lee, thank you very much for coming.
That's
Yeah,
all
thank
right.
you, Lee.
I mean, I hope you come again
She
and
said we need to speak louder.
louder.
Who did?
Elizabeth.
Oh, ages ago.
Yeah. Sorry, everyone.
Oh wow, they were quite loud.
Okay, well, thank you, Lee. And remember that we will be online more often.
Yes,
And
on Sunday.
We have
Heal the Best at
the
3
best.
o'clock. As usually, we're a bit organic with our times too. But 3 o'clock, we're going to be live with Heal the Best. So make sure you're here
Sundays.
Sunday. Yes.
Alright, bye for now.
Bye for now.